Okay. Hi, Diane. So tonight I want to talk about paths, okay? From the beginning, we have been talking about the Buddhist path. And the word path in this context is really kind of deceiving, because you think of a path as a fairly defined, predictable thing, like the path to becoming a doctor, right? Or the path to becoming a professional musician, or the path from here to home. There's different ways you can go, but pretty much you know where you're leaving from and where you're going to end. But in the Buddhist use of the word path is different. It is about a very individual process, and there is no one path. So, why? There's a couple of reasons. One is that when you start on a path like this, you don't really know where you're going. You don't really think, I'm going to end up with a law degree, or I'm going to end up a Buddha. Don't really think that, right? So you just know that you have a problem and you're going to try to work with it. And that is how you define the path for yourself at the beginning. And then, okay, that's great. And then as you begin to practice, your circumstances change. And what you're looking for changes. And it evolves. And all of us start out in a different place. A lot of people come to this because their life is in chaos. They're struggling with just everyday order, just getting a job or paying rent or whatever, and they're coming to relieve that kind of stress. And then after their life improves, hopefully it does, their needs change and they start looking for other things too. So not only do we all start in a different place, and we start with uncertainty about what we want, and we change as we go along, but we're all different from each other. So I just want to make that point really clear to you, that you should trust your own instincts about what's going on in you, what you need at this time. So, for example, in Pema's reading about the Bodhisattva path, she talks about rowing a boat across the river and having the boat dissolve underneath you. That's the purpose of the practice, is to dissolve your attachment to yourself. Well, if you're struggling to pay the rent, you don't need to be dissolving your boat, You really don't. It's not appropriate. You first have to get your act together, get settled, get confident, get some sort of feeling of peacefulness so that you could imagine dissolving your boat, or your attachments. So I don't mean to suggest, because I tell you about all these different methods, that you should expect to do all these different practices. But I do want you to know about them, because let's say that you have been practicing mindfulness meditation for several years. I know some of you have. It's natural that when your own life settles down, your attention can expand out to other people. And then you might find yourself in a boat on the river, needing that kind of support in terms of how to get yourself out of the way and help other people. And so the practices for those kind of practice, bodhisattva training, are appropriate for you at that point. And if you don't know about them, you won't know to go looking for them. So I sort of want to map these out for you. That's my purpose. And it's lucky that here at EBS we have all of them. So if something strikes your fancy, you can join a group here and try it out. And that's really unique. So, all of the Buddha's teachings can roughly be divided into three categories. the first one is called foundational practices. We used to call it Hinayana, which means small vehicle, but that's become offensive to people in those practices, because it sounds like they're junior league instead of varsity or something. So we call it, and it's true, it's not, it's a misnomer. So we call it foundational practices, and they're practices from Southeast Asia and India, but Vipassana and insight meditation practices. You'll hear them call that in the West. We have a group of them on Sunday nights here. And the foundation practice is the peace meditation that we've been doing in this class. Cultivating a stable, peaceful mind and peace in your life. And also the practices we talked about last week of taking vows, simple vows like precepts, like saying I won't steal, disciplining your life and your behavior, moral conduct. Those are the key components of the foundation practice. And all Buddhists do those practices. And many people stay there their whole lives. They become Vipassana teachers and so forth, experts, and Vipassana is it for them. But some people, first of all, come in needing more than that. Maybe they're already stable to begin with, and like they're engaged in caring professions, maybe, and they really need help with that, with people and taking care of people. And so their second category of practices is what we call the Mahayana, or great vehicle, still called that. And that is the Zen traditions and the Tibetan traditions. And they have an ideal that says, well, okay, once you get your own act together, you need to take care of everybody else. And they have a vow in the Mahayana, they have a Bodhisattva vow, which says, I will not become a Buddha until everybody else is a Buddha. So that's how I think about that. And they have these practices, and the reading formula is one of those, the Paramita practices. So we're going to talk about those tonight. And then the third category is the Vajrayana, Tibetan Vajrayana. And they are concerned with what is reality. Their pursuit is to see the world like a Buddha sees the world. And they take the position that, okay, I am a Buddha, now what? And their practices involve a lot of logic, but a lot of imagination, visualization, and sort of playing with reality. And these appeal to philosophically minded people. There are brain scientists that wire the Dalai Lama and see what he's doing, Which, by the way, they laugh. The Tibetans always laugh when their head gets wired because they think their mind is here. And they're like, why are you looking at my elbow? That's where the action is. But anyway, brain scientists, philosophers, abstract thinkers, those people, that kind of tends to be. And there's a lot of people that care less about these cosmic mysteries of what is reality. It's like, let's get lunch, okay? Let's get through the laundry, don't bother me with all that stuff. So there's not as many Vajrayana people as there are basically Zen and Mahayana and Theravada Foundation people. But it's there and you should know about it. And I gave you the Anantuttan reading. That is a Vajrayana wisdom practice that he describes. So, do you have any questions about those, what I just laid out? We have a bunch of Vajrayana practices here at UBS, and we have several Zen groups, 3 Zen groups here at UBS. So, it's not as though you graduate from one to the next. You never graduate from the foundation. I still do that every day. It's still very, very important to my sanity to do mindfulness and discipline and all of those things. But in America, in a Buddhist country, if you grew up in Japan, you would only be exposed to Zen. So you wouldn't even consider the Tibetan stuff or the Southeast Asian stuff. You would just do Zen. But here in America, and we'll talk about this more next week, what's unique about all of this when it got here is that it all came at once. So Americans, it's a blessing and a curse because we got the whole world of Buddhism dumped in our laps at the same time. And it was up to us to sort out what was what. No help, really, no help. And there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of misunderstanding and so forth in those first 75 years. Still going on today, but also we're redefining everything to some extent here. So even more than in tradition, people here mix up categories because they'll be a fan of this teacher who's this category and a fan of that teacher who's that category, because it's all here and available, so you can pick what you want. But I just wanted you to know that if you run into a person that's talking about mantra and visualization and sort of what is reality, that kind of thing, that's Vajrayana. That's the wisdom, they're training in wisdom, they're training to see like a Buddha. And if you hear about compassion and loving kindness, that's Mahayana, and they're training to take care of the world. And if you hear about discipline, precepts, and mindfulness, mostly that's going to be material foundation. So you know what brought you here, and you will find out what methods resonate with you. And you should trust yourselves, because you know better than anybody else. And really, the frustrating thing for us in the West is that we don't have anybody to guide us. You can't even go to the parish priest or the local preacher, right? Because which one? There's look at all these teachers that we have here. Now you could find one of them and say, okay, you'll be my teacher and I'll follow you, and that's what most of us do eventually. But there's a lot of confusion before that, so don't be surprised. But anyway, let's talk tonight for a minute about compassion and the compassion practices. And as I said in the first class, people drawn to Buddhism tend to be people who feel like responsible for the world, who feel like they need to do something when things are bad. They are looking for that. Like the Buddha was, lots of people, he was born into a period of crisis, just like we are going through now, but he was one of those people who said, something's got to be done about this, and let me try to figure it out. Not everybody does that, okay? But the people who do that, luckily, he did that, and he left us all this tradition of hundreds and hundreds of years and countless people who have worked with this stuff in their own lives and tried to apply it. So, the word bodhisattva means awakened being. Bodhi is awake, and sattva is being. The goal of is based on this idea that you already have a Buddha in you, bodhicitta, awakened heart or mind. And the whole kind of second category of Mahayana practices are designed to tap your inherent Buddha nature, your awakened heart. Let it blossom, let it widen, let it train yourself to go ahead and feel the pain and be present with pain and expand your So there, we can nurture bodhicitta in other words. So the reading is about the 6 transcendental activities, or paramitas. And you can also go to Pema for a lot of other Mahayana practices. There are contemplations, those are lojong, it's called, which are slogans that you can contemplate. There are specific meditations of exchanging yourself or other people that you can work with. There's a whole bunch of stuff, reams and reams of stuff. And Pema's kind of a good, my favorite person because she's American and she talks our language and she raised children and grandchildren and she knows what we're doing. So let's look at the paramitas. So sometimes the word paramita is translated as perfection. And these are 6 qualities, perfect qualities that a Buddha would have. And prospective Buddhas like us can develop these perfections by practicing them. So the other way people say this is going to the other shore, going from here to being a Buddha. That's the purpose. They carry you to the other shore. And that boat analogy that she used in reading is really fun. You transcend this world to become going to the other shore. So you get to become a Buddha. So, as Pema pointed out, and I'm sorry that you guys haven't gotten a chance to read these readings before I'm talking about them, but you'll see, you'll read them later. You'll catch up. Anyway, as she points out in the reading, these activities are designed to dissolve our attachment to ourselves, because that's the main thing that gets in the way of being a benefit to everybody else. We have to get over ourselves. And like I said, this is a kind of an advanced practice, and we don't throw people into the deep end of bodhisattva training when they don't even know how to meditate. And we hopefully give you some stability. Hopefully you get that. Some mindfulness that helps you settle and stabilize yourself. And then the wisdom that arises from mindfulness training actually leaves love to concern for other people. Because your mind opens up, you're less self-absorbed, and your mind opens up, you start going, look at all these other people suffering just like me. So one of the paramitas is Rajna, or wisdom, and she says that, well, the others are generosity, discipline, patience, enthusiasm, and meditation. And then wisdom, and she says that the wisdom paramita is the most important one, because, and that's logical, if you can see things clearly, then it's obvious what to do. It's only because we can't see things clearly, because we're clouded with our self-concern and so forth, that we don't know what to do. So, but if you can see clearly, like a Buddha does, Buddhas are omniscient, so to speak. If you could do that, you would know what to do. So here's the dilemma. You need this wisdom and clarity, which comes from meditation. But what if you don't just have that? You know, it's like it's not a thing that just dawns on you one day and then you've got it. But it's like, fortunately, you can work with the other ones, and they lead to wisdom. They all work together. So you could pick any one, work with that for a while, and it would help you with the others. People work with these by picking one, like generosity, and then spending a period of reading about it, studying it, what does it mean, what is the teaching about it, from multiple teachers maybe, different books and stuff, and then contemplating it and trying to embody it in your life for a period of time, a month, a year, whatever. But it's like that's the practice of it. That's that trying to embody it in your life is called contemplation. That's what contemplation means in this context. I don't know. I know that Christians and Jews and Muslims contemplate too, and I can't speak to what they mean. But what we mean is trying to embody something as best you understand, and by that, I'm learning more about it. It's a two-way thing. When you try to be generous, you see your selfishness. So it's a feedback loop. And when you try to be patient, you see your patience. So it's like a living meditation. It's like when you're mindfully watching your breath, that's one thing. When you're mindfully watching your generosity or lack of it, that's so most people, or many people, start with, if you went to a school, and there are like monasteries, monks in monasteries are trained in these, in the Tibetan monasteries are trained in these, and they start with generosity usually, because they do sort of lead to I have a book, this book, A Complete Guide to Compassion Act, Becoming Bodhisattvas. She goes through all of that here. And then Thich Nhat Hanh also, he's a Zen guy, also has a chapter in this book. This is my favorite book of his. Has a chapter on the paramitas and other compassion practices. So there's a lot you can, if this appeals to you, there's a lot of places to go. So again, I'll stop and see if you have thoughts or questions. Some of you are nodding like you have experience with this.
This experience resonates. It's less so that I have experience with it, and so that what you're discussing resonates.
Resonates. Yeah.
Intrinsic responsibility to do something about what's going on. And not a lot of clarity as to what now.
Yeah. And anything else?
Oh. Can you put the titles of the two books?
Okay.
I'll tell you what.
I'm not holding up to the camera because this one is called The Heart of the Buddha's Teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh. And this one is Shudra, and it's called Becoming Bodhisattvas. And hers is kind of a step-by-step guide, and this is more just sort of an explanation. Okay. So let's talk about wisdom practices and the Vajrayana. And this is, in particular, I gave you this one from now to he talks about mantra practice. But I wanted to offer this. He did this talk on YouTube in March of 2020, right when the world was shutting down a couple of weeks into it. And I, like lots of people, had gone to YouTube looking for what did the teachers say about this. And I liked this talk so much that I probably watched it a dozen times, and I transcribed it, and that's what I gave you was the transcription. Also, you can watch it yourselves, which I encourage you to do because he sings the Torah mantra. This is not yeah. And but what I like and why I wanted to share it with you. First of all, Anam Thupten was born in Tibet and raised in the oldest school of Tibetan Buddhism, the Nyingma school, and educated to be a Lama. And he came here when he was in his late teens, not speaking English, but a very skilled meditation master. And his teacher, who lived in California, he went to California, and his teacher there sent him to Little Rock so that he could learn English teaching this. Well, I was thinking, I have a lot of questions about that. Like, really? Now, his teacher, Lama Tarchin, had been coming to Little Rock in the 90s because we were executing people. And he had students on that road, and he was coming to be with them sometimes while they were executed. And he had a following, a small following of people there, who he knew pretty well. So he was basically entrusting this young man to those people, his friends here, the students here, and Fox's and there are others. And so, and now Tupten says that he also learned by watching MTV. His English is pretty good, and he teaches in English. So he's still coming all these years later, 20-something years later. And he's coming this weekend, this coming weekend. And you can see him live on Friday night if you want to at the UU Church. Also on Zoom, we're Zooming that. He likes to do mantras. He likes to sing mantras with the group. And it's so cool because it's like physical, it's a physical experience and not just a video. You actually feel the sound, in your body. Anyway, I like this talk because it's a window into the mind of a guy like that, with his realization, his level of training, of how this works when he's confronted with a difficult situation. So I want to break it down for a second. First, he looks, as he describes it in his talk, he looks around, he just looks at his own reaction to the situation and how people around him are reacting. He surveys, he takes the measure of the moment. And he realizes that, of course, there are many ways to react. This could be a moment of doom or a moment of opportunity for blessings, depending on how we respond to it. And in the talk, he suggests that this global pandemic was actually a powerful time for the world. I find this hard, especially 3 years later, because at the time it seemed like, yeah, we will get universal health care. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Look, we're seeing all the problems, maybe we'll fix them. And he kind of says that. He says that it looks like the world is resetting itself. And in a moment like that, anything is possible because the systems are breaking down, which again is very parallel to what was happening when the Buddha left his home to try to figure out what to do. And systems were breaking down and something new is needed. And so now maybe that's still what's going on. And it's just taking a while. Maybe the rebirth is going to be fantastic, but it's a slow process. That's it. But anyway, what Anantapten did was he thought of the Buddha. Just like anybody who's ever taken refuge in the Buddha, like we discussed last week, he said to himself, what would Buddha do? He's my example. What would he do? And although in the talk, Anantapten doesn't completely articulate the qualities of the Buddha, he does remind us that Buddha, we know something about the Buddha's qualities. Even people who've never heard anything of the Buddha put Buddha statues in their garden because somehow there's something about the image that resonates for people and that we want in our lives. There's something that calls to us. So people buy t-shirts with Buddhism and they've never meditated, but somehow they want to align themselves with that. And so he looks at that and he thinks, yeah, Buddha is here. Buddha, the understanding of Buddha is already here somehow. And certainly he has an understanding because he's worked with it, he's studied, he's a professional Buddhist, right? But even non-professional Buddhists have a feeling of like, what is needed at this time? Like, this is maybe a good model of what we need. And he uses the phrase sacred models. He says, whatever your sacred models are, call them up right now. This is what he did, called up his sacred model. And he brought it forward in his mind. He made a mantra out of the phrase, what would Buddha do? Which, yeah, he did it all day long, used that phrase. And it brings that sacred model forward in his awareness as something to remember in this time, something to invoke during this time. And that image invokes the Buddha nature in us when we do that. So in the video, like I said, he does a Torah mantra, and I encourage you to listen to it. It's really sweet. So this is how mantra practice works, and people do all kinds of mantras. They are invoking an image of a sacred model, but it's not somebody that's going to come from the outside and save them. It's something that's going to come from their inside. It's calling it up inside ourselves. So, and it's also not like a Harry Potter, incantation. I'm going to say, woman, you're going to be a better person. You're going to behave yourself. No. Or I can make you disappear. It's like, hello there. It's like that. And the sounds, theoretically, the sounds of those the mantras are always, or usually mantras, traditional mantras, are in Sanskrit, which is the oldest Buddhist language. And theoretically, the word actually resonates somehow in our neurology, in our nerves, and changes us physically. So they're not just random sounds. They have power. But again, the power is to change you, not to change your ex-husband. Even though you never knows. I've known people, very advanced Buddhist people, who are confused about that. I'm going to chant this mantra for you. Good. Let's see how that works. Anyway, so people work with mantras like that. So I don't really know what else to say about all of this stuff. There's a lot of next week I want to talk more specifically about how we might each figure out what our own path would be. But I do want to say that in terms of the pandemic, to me the most shocking thing about it was the isolation, right? And we felt cut adrift, and all we had was the stupid internet, too, which, right, was useless. It was just torturous. And so how do you counter that? Well, we counter that by connecting with each other. And that is so intrinsic to the Buddhist program, is so reading together, talking together, being in communion with each other, helping each other. So your path should include that somehow. Find people that you want to emulate and get to know them. Be around good people. That's something I think we all got out of it too. It's like, but we won't be around the right people. Anyway, a lot of teachers told us at that time, okay, Bodhisattvas, this is your moment. You've been training for this. Come on. We were called to go to the front lines and start doing all the things we sitting around imagining ourselves being patient and generous and all of that. Well, I didn't do that. And it was, I took it seriously. I did. Trying to figure out, how can I, reach out to anybody I could help. It's true that connecting with other people was really, anyway. So, I'm going to stop now because we need to meditate, but before the time is up. But I also really want to know what you think. Any questions or comments? Apparently, your thoughts are on the floor.
We all
Just kidding. Yeah.
In Autumn Junction, he literally made what would Buddha do, his mantra,
That's what he
in
said.
Tibetan.
I don't know if he used it in Tibetan or in English. He doesn't say
Really?
it. He doesn't say it. He just says, if you watch the talk, he says,
Okay.
he made it a mantra. And he said it, and he was surprised at how often he had to say it during a single day, hundreds of times. That something would come up and spark it, and he'd go, oh, what would Buddha do? What would Buddha do with this?
It's not a bad thing to say,
Yeah. 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 It's a lovely talk. I obviously like it. And you've got it written down, but if you want to watch the video, it's nice. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's do a compassion meditation, and then we'll see if there's anything anybody wants to say. So, the only thing that's different about compassion meditation practice, you start with the same settling in, invoking peace and calm that we have been doing. And then, as you feel settled, you expand outward. You invoke a feeling of love, and you expand that love, feeling of love out, like imagine sharing. So I'll guide you through that. So I'll do a little more talking through this than I usually do. So, okay, so settle your body and make sure you're comfortable in an upright position, but relaxed. The Zen people call this a ready posture. Relax your eyes, let them go out of focus. You're not looking at anything, but your eyes are open. You are present in the room. You can take a second to feel the space around you. And notice if there's any tension in your body, your shoulders, your jaw, and just let that tension go. And I remind you that your body really knows well how to settle like this. You're settling down to a fantastic turkey dinner. Your body knows how to settle down to do that. So it's like that, settle. And then notice your breathing. Notice the breath moving your body. And especially notice the breath coming down into your belly. A full breath. All the way in and consider that in your breath you are exchanging with the world around you. You're basically exchanging space. The space within you is connecting with the space outside of you. And if you want to, you can visualize drawing space into you through the air and exhaling all the stillness in yourself out into outer space, letting it go. So now I want you to call to mind someone who has shown you unconditional love. Someone who's been kind to you. They could be here now, they could be long gone. But invoke the memory of that person. Feel the warmth of their love for you and how it nurtures you. Let that warmth infuse your whole body. About someone who needs to be loved, someone that you are worried about or concerned about, and send this love that you've got in you to them. You can picture it like a perfume that they are, and a smell wherever they are. What's that? Or a cool breeze on a really hot day in the middle of their suffering. They're going to feel this little tiny breeze of relief. Or whatever it is that you wish for them. They'll feel full when they're hungry. They can rest when they're tired. They can receive what you want for them, the love that you want to give them. It reaches them. It helps them. So the people who loved you or love you, and the people you love are in a great big circle together, taking care of each other. Sharing their woes and their joys, and mostly celebrating this profound human love that we all have. So just take a moment to enjoy that. Let that be your sacred model. So now you can let all that imagery just dissolve, breathe it out, let it go. But maybe leave a little bit of it in your heart, carry it with you. So we still have about 10 minutes. Yeah, the foundational practices are also called Theravada, which means the school of the elders, old school. They are they're called Vipassana, Vipassana, and also insight. Vipassana is a Sanskrit word, usually translated to insight. So in the West, here, you'll see the Insight Meditation Society. Teachers like Jack Cornfield, Sylvia Bornstein. They have centers all over the place. And the Vipassana teachers, who are the ones we talked about last week from Goenka, who meditate for 10 hours at a time. And here at EBS, we have Sunday night, 7 p.m. Theravada. And we should get back to, we aren't doing it now, but they used to host a 4-hour sitting on Saturday afternoons. Yeah, and they were popular, and they just haven't gotten back to it since COVID, but we probably. Yeah, and our vision is to have those and have childcare, and wouldn't that be great? And so, anyway, they do, in that time, they do walking and sitting and take a break, sitting for 4 hours. It's good. You can do part of it or not. We'll have to make a note.
Start that up.
Get them going. Put a light on it, make that suggestion. How about, inviting them to a lot of people like to sit. We have a lot of people coming for 30 minutes every day. It's good stuff.
Doesn't quite
It's her fault.
enjoy the long sittings. But I like the long sittings.
You want to mention the others, Mahayana and Vajrayana?
Sure. Vajrayana, sure, well, so Zen is the main Mahayana, but Tibetan Buddhism is also a Mahayana Buddhist practice. Tibetans teach all of it, and part of that is historical because Tibet was the last country that Buddhism went to. And so it went there about 800 in this era now, and went much earlier to Southeast Asia, China, and Japan. And by the time it had evolved in India, by the time it went to Tibet, so things had developed in Indian Buddhism that the others missed because they you know. And so Tibet has the whole thing, the whole package, had the whole package, and preserved it, the whole package. And then in about 400 or 500 years later, Buddhism was destroyed in India, and Tibet wound up being the repository for a lot of those teachings because it was all gone in India. So anyway, the Tibetans do all the Mahayana practices and the Vajrayana practices. But the Zen people, well, I don't know. I mean, Dr. Lai says that the Zen people have Vajrayana practices too, but they don't share them with me or something. He says they really, like it's secret or you have to be, I don't know. I've never seen any evidence of it, but I believe that, there's an inclination to it. But it's kind of not Zen-like to be visualizing, they want to just sit. But they do the Zen people created hospice, basically. That was not popular Zen practice. And I mean, not like hospitals do hospice, but I mean the practice of hospice that ordinary people do, non-medical people, they do that. I remember we lived in San Francisco in the 80s when AIDS was all over the place. Zen people were really busy. So that's an example of a Mahayana tradition. And Thich Nhat Hanh is a social justice advocate. Like I said, he was an advisor to Martin Luther King, and people in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition also involve themselves in engaged Buddhism. That's a Mahayana. Well, just tell me, is this helpful to you? Is there some way it could be?
We were talking earlier about your trip down to Alabama and you were in that film that has. I think that's a lot of reading here. But also points me in the direction of names, teachers,
Yeah.
people are talking about very specific topics that I'm not even aware about.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what's going on in this class, the impact that you're having is happening outside of the class.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Good. Well, so next time, the readings are short for next time, and they're about kind of like the history of the spread of Buddhism and what changed when it came west. And I'm deliberately leaving time, so maybe you can go back through everything and see if you have questions or issues, or even inspirations about all of it that you'd like to talk about before we finish. That would be good. Yeah. I hope we can go see an object this weekend, Friday night. It's by donation, it's free, basically by donation. And and again, it's a chance to see the Buddha, basically. He's a really humble one.
Do you know if you'll be giving refuge this weekend?
Yeah, no, I don't think so, but I'm not sure. There's been some back and forth with his people about it. I haven't spoken to him directly. He arrives Thursday night, and I may have a chance to ask him. But, I have all your emails. If I find out that he's giving refuge, I can email you. You won't be here anyway.
I won't be here, and I
And you've
already took
already done it.
refuge with him in 2014.
With him, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we send refugees?
I don't know, can he send it? Well, I already took refuge with him, so I just wondered because he doesn't always do it.
No, he doesn't.
I feel very fortunate to
Yes,
is
it's
being willing to do that in 2014.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that if you are interested and the opportunity presents itself, you should just go for it. It's
Yeah.
like, you're taking refuge in the Buddha, not in a specific person.
Right.
So you can, anybody that stands in for the Buddha, you can do it and feel that you've made that connection. So we'll try to do it here. We do bring teachers here. Some of them do that. Okay, should we call it a night? Yeah?
I want to thank you for having a class.
Oh,
It means a lot.
Yes, thank you so much.
You know, having grown up in a Christian household, you know, you go to churches and play with those things. So, you know, from the time you're old enough to understand until the time you're old enough to make your own decisions about whether you're keeping that tradition alive. You're going and you're hearing all the Christian values and stories, and you hear them over and over again. And I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah, sure.
You know, from, you know, the time you're 5 or 6 to the time you're 20. You know, that's a lot of years to be able to hear those stories and internalize them. And if you're someone who wasn't exposed to Buddhism in that way, you don't have the benefit of having heard those lessons and stories and values for 15 years ago. You know, I've only heard them a few times. I've only been able to study them as much as time as I want to. And it doesn't equal the same amount of input I got from Christians, Christian people. So I appreciate any opportunity I get to hear this. It doesn't ever feel repetitive to me at this point. I hear something new every time. So, you know, you could do this lesson here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just mean, I
We do want to
appreciate
do
the
more like
opportunity.
this. Yeah, we do want to do more like this here. It is important, and there's not a lot of opportunity, it's true. This exposure. And I grew up in the Episcopal Church. And, a lot more about that actually than I do about Buddhism. I had to educate myself.
I just want to say, I don't think you should mistake for me the silence, because I in past group settings I could be quite verbose.
Yeah.
I really challenge myself to really do active listening, and Mr. Wiggins referred me to Pima.
Yes, yeah.
And I took a mineral bath today, a very long mineral bath, with the lights
Sounds
out,
wonderful.
with the salts and the
Right.
dead, I don't know if they're the Dead Sea salts or,
Wow.
could be a marketing thing, but that neither here nor there. And she said something, she said, it's not a metaphor, but I want to compare, contrast, or analogy. She's talking about correcting the mind. In other words, she used this deal that said, when you're walking barefoot, it hurts, so we're gonna cover the earth in leather.
Right,
And where you gonna find enough leather?
Right.
Or you can cover your feet in leather and it will feel like. And
yeah,
I think from what I got from that was, we could talk about in meditation, we could talk about all these other irritants and fixing my cousin or she loaned me money, didn't pay me, all these things. Or with covering the feet versus the world, it's really focusing on this,
yeah,
and all the rest will. And I'm looking at people like epigenetics and and how the cells actually have dialogue.
yeah,
50 trillion.
yeah,
And it's all, I mean, it's almost like they're all kind of saying a similar, when you start getting into quantum,
Yeah.
they're kind of like, you know, particles,
Yeah.
like subatomic particles and how they behave.
Yeah.
Like it's, like you realize that he said something when I was listening to Bruce Lipton, who talks about the mind, biology, and belief system.
Yeah.
Still, he was saying the early quantum people in the 20s, that's why they separated quantum mechanics,
Mhm.
because they realized that your thoughts dictate your reality, but that was too scary for them.
Mm,
right,
So they kind of preserved quantum mechanics not to go there because they couldn't get their head around it.
right,
How your thoughts will actually, it'll have effects on your cells, and it's like, wow.
yeah,
You know, and then you had books, remember back in the day, Celestine Prophecy,
oh, yeah.
The Secret, and all of these
Yeah.
other people that came
Yeah.
along.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, that's very fascinating, isn't it?
But it's, I feel like this is, I'm somewhat of an infant or embryo even.
Yeah.
But it sounds like if you could get this thing, if you could harness it, and she said, pain is just part of everyday life.
Mm,
You know, if you lose a loved one, you're gonna grieve, so that's just all part of it. And I grew up in a very fundamentalist Church of God in Christ, so we dealt with binary, most of the Western binary, heaven and hell, good and bad.
Mm.
But it feels like instead of a supreme being, a supreme state of being.
Nice, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
it sounds like you're gonna have a good time. And all this stuff, really. Cause it is, these people, these Buddhist people have spent the same 2,500 years that our people have been looking at parables, all that, they've been looking at how mind works. Like scientists, they've accumulated an incredible array of information, experience, and knowledge that we don't have a clue, you know? And I love the idea that they've decided that when you look at an electron, it changes because you look at it,
Mhm.
right? I mean, things are just so fluid and so impermanent and so spacious and so like alive. And we have a tradition that says it's good, it's bad, period. You know,
Yeah, but
it's-
there's no extortion. There's no extortion. You know? I love you, but you gotta do it. I remember as a child, I had nightmares about Lot, like his wife turned into salt, like, I mean, as a child, I would ask my mother, I said, what did Jonah do and how did he go to the bathroom while he was in the whale? Like, I couldn't get my head around it, the concepts were, you
And your
know.
mom said, don't ask questions
Well,
like that.
yeah, they would say you gotta have faith.
Stop that, have faith.
So there was
Of
no.
course it's mysterious, it's
Yeah,
God.
yeah. So it was a punishing, you know, poor Job. I don't know, poor Job. You know, so it's, but I don't feel that the love and the exercise you did about the love of a loved one, there's no, well, you know, you're gonna burn in hell and you're gonna be on hot coals. Let me see. I'm going to Dante. I'll take the ninth reading, Dante, you know?
Yeah.
So it's that's why I'm attracted to this.
Yeah, me too. I like it, I wanna say, I did just go on this pilgrimage to Montgomery and Birmingham with my stepmother. And one of the things that struck me really hard was how religious Martin Luther King, and all of them, they were invoking God constantly while they were getting beat up. And I kept thinking, how could they still believe in God after everything that was happening, you know? But they did. And I can only call that a mystery because, and the women I was traveling with, mostly women, there were some men, but the men didn't talk, the women talked. And the women still, you know, very Christian women and blessing me constantly and stuff like that, which I appreciated. But it's like, well, but if he's so great, why didn't he fix all this stuff? That's what my child, inner child, wants to go. But, you know, how do you let it be like this if you have the power to change it? But anyway.
We're all on the hero's journey. I mean, Gilgamesh, you know,
Yeah.
like this is what we're supposed to do with this.
But whatever they believe, the civil rights people, it worked for them, and that's what matters. Got them through.
Oh, love conquered
Love,
David. Yeah.
So, anyway. All right, let's call it a night. We will see you next Monday.
Yes.
And, or you can look at the videos.
Yes. Oh,
I'll send,
yes,
I
I will.
have your email now, so you'll get the links and everything. Thank you.
And thank you for, I just met Ema and I really, I'm just saying she's very maternal for me,
Yeah.
you know.